All right, well, let's get on to the talk here of the Canadian women's national team. They have two massive Olympic qualifiers coming up against Jamaica right here on One Soccer, September 22nd and September 26th. Some news just breaking today. Two injuries in camp. Two pretty big players will miss out on these qualifiers, Ollie, and that's Jade Revere and Deanne Rose. Revere has missed a couple games with Manchester United, so you kind of knew maybe she was dealing with a little bit of something. Deanne Rose, it's a bit heartbreaking. We know she's been fighting to come back from that Achilles injury, was at the World Cup, did see some limited minutes, and appears to be out again. They haven't said what the injuries are. We don't know as of yet. But I mean, when you're looking at starting 11s, one, if not both, could be in that, and one for sure, is an option there to come off as as an early sub, or come into the game, I should say, as an early sub. So is this a really big blow for Bev Priestman?
I think they're both losses for sure. I think they're losses that Canada can cope with based on the other options that are on the roster. We're talking about 2 games here, not 6 or 7. So I don't
Two
think
games
this is
that
anything.
matter. Two games
Two
that are
games that
huge.
matter for sure, but it's 180 minutes where I think they've got enough players to get by here. Revere for me is the slightly bigger loss, as much as Deanne Rose is obviously a big threat, and particularly off the bench, she's a really good option to have. I just look at right back, and there's a little bit more uncertainty there. I think Ashley Lawrence, the plan would have been to have her continue on the left because there still isn't really, an obvious other option. So you're probably looking now at Jade Rose coming back in and playing at right back, which I think she has done very well. But obviously a player that missed the World Cup and now has to come back into the side, still a very young player, and maybe having a bit more of an attacking option like Jade Revere without Janine Becky, who could also potentially play that slot, is a bit more of an issue for Bev Priestman to deal with. But I think these are two that you feel the loss, but for me, there's still enough there for Canada to get by in these 2 matches.
Well, the Revere loss is a significant one. I really like the player. Didn't have the best World Cup, but perhaps there's opportunity here. And I would suggest that what Ollie suggests, that Ashley Lawrence continuing to play at left back, is a mistake. She is an all-world right back. Play her in the position that she is best at. And hopefully this forces her hand. Don't play a center back at right back. Play an actual right back who's one of the best at that position in world football at that position, please. And then maybe want to play a natural left back at left back. Hopefully this
There's only
provides
one.
a little bit of common sense. Still play her. I just play players in their best positions. It's simple for me.
Yeah, I had a chance to speak with Bev Priestman, guys, and I was trying to, get out of her possibly, and maybe if she's coming out with a new tactical formation. As you know, I've played around with it. Gareth, you've completely poo-pooed it. I don't care what you have to say. I still like my 3-5-2.
You're probably right.
But the thing is
me, though.
so she had acknowledged, she goes, we played a block at the World Cup for those 3 games. It clearly didn't work, so I have to change things up. She wasn't willing, though, to show her hand on how she would change things up. But she said that, when I asked her, is goal scoring a problem? Like, is this something you really need to focus on? She said, well, yes. Like, she acknowledged that her team is one that scores by committee. But right away, she highlighted that this team is at its best when it's not conceding, that its backbone is its defense. And she pointed out the Australia game, which was the 4-0 blowout, pointed out the Japan game at the She Believes Cup, which was 3-0 for Japan. She's like, that's when we are at our absolute worst. And you could see how we're off our game. Is that more of the focus then, Ollie? I mean, is this a team, as much as we want to see goals and want to see those highlight reels, is this a team that's at its best when Kaylin Sheridan, Vanessa Gilles, Buchanan, they're all communicating with one another and just playing strong defensively?
Yeah, it helps. And I don't think it's just like the defense and how you defend in your own thirds. Like I would like to see a team that's a bit more proactive defensively all over the pitch. I think sometimes when you don't have the talent that other teams do, when you're talking about the top teams in women's international football, maybe a good way to counter that is where you win the ball, right? Like if you can win the ball higher up the pitch, closer to goal, play more of a transition-based game. We haven't really seen a ton of that from Canada. I think they have the players to potentially do it. It's a bit more of a risk because you have to obviously, like you said, if she talked about the block not really working, you have to come out of that block a little bit more, press in different parts of the pitch, try and find moments like that where you can, catch a team in, deep in their own half. So maybe that's something we could see a little bit more of, certainly against a team like Jamaica. I think Canada has the capability to do that. And that's a different way maybe to try and generate some more attacking chances rather than every attack having to start with the centre backs and, you know, progress all the way up the pitch, which is a much more difficult way to create chances and score goals.
Is that what it was? Is that the World Cup of block? I mean,
they were playing pretty high up the pitch and I felt like the opposition too in many ways. I mean, it was a lob. Vanessa Gilles oftentimes, you know, was running and sprinting because Ashley Lawrence, as we know, even though she's playing left back, it felt more like a left wing, was pushing up, and it really kind of left certain flanks exposed. So maybe that's
really
what
feel
that
like
means.
it didn't feel like a block to me. It felt like they were too high at times.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't know. I'd have to hear the comment in full.
Yeah.
Their best half of football against Ireland, they certainly weren't playing in a block in that game. So I don't know what this formation is going to look like. Perhaps your very defensive starting 11, Andy, might be spot on. Perhaps you just want to go to Jamaica, keep things tight, don't concede, then come back home and maybe play a little bit more expansive. I'm not quite sure what this is going to look like. And I'm not quite sure what the best version of this team looks like. So a lot of intrigue, a lot of pressure. Let's see.
Well, if we don't know, imagine what Bev Priestman's now thinking, because once again, having to deal with injuries, and she acknowledged the year that's been with the injuries, and then once again mentioned the off-field distractions. And I just wonder, Wheels, we know that this is still not completely addressed or resolved, I should say, with the labor dispute between the players and Canada Soccer. What more can a coach do? And we've talked about Bev Priestman being on the hot seat. You know, we said if she doesn't get this result, if they can't get back to the Olympics, like what does this mean for her future with Canada Soccer? But I also wonder what kind of conundrum the manager is in, where if she's talked about off-field issues, like, isn't it up to the players to be focused, right? Like at some point, you got to focus. It's the onus should fall on the shoulders of the players here.
Yes, we've been going through this for a long time now. And we saw another nation that's dealing with vastly more significant issues with their association go on and win the World Cup. So look, they're getting paid. You know, the World Cup prize money is still an issue, but that's in the past. They're getting paid for these games. They are the Olympic champions. Like this is priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right now. So all of these other, and I'm not saying there isn't issues and everything's, I'm not even coming close to suggesting that, but you're going to have a sold out crowd at BMO Field supporting you in the second leg of this game. There's hype. There's belief, I think, amongst Canadians that this team can turn it around after that disappointing World Cup and get it right. So there's no excuses here. It's time to produce. They're a better side than Jamaica. They should go on and make it through this tie. And I think they should do it comfortably. But the game's played on the field. We'll see. That mentality just needs to be much better than it was at the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, I think at this point you've just got to be motivated by your own personal interest, right? Of wanting to play in Olympic Games. Like, you don't want to throw that away because I get it. The off-field issues have been far from ideal, and I know that can weigh on people. And certainly earlier in the year, I understand how that was the case. But at some point, you've got to say, like, I'm going to take care of myself and my own career here, and it's in my interests to try and put that to one side and let's go out there and perform. So. That's incumbent, I think, on Bev Priestman to get the group in the right kind of mindset, the leaders in the group as well to help their head coach with doing that, and don't throw away in Olympic Games that you're perfectly capable of making by winning a 2-legged tie against Jamaica because of other stuff like that. That's, to me, kind of cutting your nose off to spite your face.
And I believe at the time, guys, like this was decided that they're going to get chartered flights for this trip to Jamaica. I believe like their demands, what they needed for these games is everything's been addressed. So, well, their big picture, there might be still things lingering on the micro level for these two games. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to be getting everything that they need.
Well, they've acknowledged as much too, right? Canada Soccer's come out and said that, and then they've acknowledged it in their most recent press release. So those games, September 22nd, 26th, right here on One Soccer. Remember, there is a One Soccer partnership with the Voyagers, September 25th. We're going to have a great panel getting you set for the games, talking about the women's game at the Craft Brasserie in Liberty Village. Check out the Voyager socials.
You get me a ticket?
And I'll buy you a beer. I'm sorry, I'll buy you an orange juice. Sorry, I forgot we were on air. Orange juice is what you're getting.
You can't say beer?
I don't know.
Whiskey?
Trying to keep it
A
professional.
margarita? Why can't you say
Adult,
these things?
adult beverage.